Good evening. You are listening to Right on Campus, the UW-Eau Claire College Republican podcast. Good evening. Thanks for tuning in to Right on Campus, the UW-Eau Claire College Republican podcast. The UW-Eau Claire College Republican podcast. We have a great show for you tonight. We've got a brand new story about a possible third Trump assassination attempt, as well as Tim Walz, the Democrat vice presidential candidate, visiting our campus for a Get Out the Vote event. We'll also be talking about our overall culture. So first, I'm looking at a story right in front of me from the New York Post. Armed man Ven Miller arrested outside Trump's Coachella rally as local sheriff insists it was a third assassination attempt, despite letting perp walk on a meager $5,000 bail. To the podcast. It really is, this is not something I always say, but it's something that we shouldn't probably get out ahead of our skis on. Before we came on the air here tonight, I was reading a little bit about it, and it sounds like this is a possible in bold and italics in all caps. We don't know for sure if this was an assassination attempt the way that it clearly was in the previous two. If you'll remember, Donald Trump's first assassination attempt struck the nation. What day was that?
July?
Yeah, it was like July 17th, was it?
Yeah, I think it was right before the Saturday before the RNC?
That's right. It was. And if you remember, it was a gentleman by the name of Thomas Crooks, who was a young, disgruntled man that we, quite frankly, know nothing about. He took about 8 shots at the president, and then was taken out by the Secret Service counter-strike snipers. It grazed our president and dropped him to the ground, where we all held our breath and waited. And I'll never forget where I was. I was and waited. And I'll never forget where I was. I was on the what was it? 13th hole.
You forgot where you were.
I was on the 13th. Well, I'm deciding
specific.
which hole it was. It was either the 13th or 14th. Maybe it was. No, it was either the 16th at Lake Geneva National. And my girlfriend's mom gave us a call, and she said Trump's been shot. And I couldn't get service, and I couldn't figure it out. And I think, like all of us, like when we first heard that, it was a pretty surreal moment. We all kind of figured that this was going to happen, but when it did, it freaked us all out. The second assassination attempt on September 15th, so pretty recently. 1:30 p.m. local time, Secret Service engaged a shooter on the 6th green of Trump International in West Palm. The shooter was able to flee the scene and then was apprehended by law enforcement. These two are pretty explicitly attempts on the president's life. There's clear motive involved. With the first one, less so. The second one, he was a clear political ideologue, had vendetta against Trump. These are pretty cut and dry. This last one, I'm not entirely sure. It sounded like a guy who had a bunch of guns in his car, and thanks to local law enforcement for doing their job. But however, I don't know if I'm ready to just jump on the podcast and nail this guy for being an would-be assassin.
I found that he does identify as a Trump supporter, and he also a group known as the Sovereign Citizens. And from the FBI website, Sovereign Citizen Movement is the citizens are an anti-government extremists who believe that even though they physically reside in this country, they are separate or sovereign from the United States.
Interesting. People who tell cops that they don't have to be licensed to drive on the road. You ever seen those videos?
No.
There's no way. That's all I've ever heard of a sovereign citizen from.
I've just heard about it today, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least before today, all I ever thought a sovereign citizen was just one of these people who likes to record their interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least before today, all I ever thought a sovereign citizen was just one of these people who likes to record their interaction with cops, and then they get pulled over for legal reason, and then they're like, I don't actually have to give you an ID. I'm a sovereign citizen.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I have seen that.
yeah.
I'm not.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I know nothing about it, so very interesting.
Well, I think this is kind of a good transition to we're talking about cancel culture today, and going more locally, we had Vice Presidential nominee Governor Tim Walz on campus today, and I had the opportunity to kind of counter that by tabling with our local county on campus and advocating for Trump and stuff, and diving right into that cancel culture stuff. We had a professor come over and just start screaming at us.
Really, a professor?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And just asking like, "Where's your facts? Where's your facts? Where's your facts? Facts." And we had one person that came over and told us she hoped we died.
Oh, wow.
And
How,
This
how,
was a
how
student?
loving.
yeah, that was
Yeah,
a student.
Interesting.
People flipping us off.
In other circumstances, it would be considered hate speech or hate crime, but given the, side or the context that it comes from,
It's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's also a very good point too. Like if we did that to them, I mean,
It would be a completely different story.
it would be a he
Like,
said, she said sort of an ordeal, and that's
yeah,
what I feel like cancel culture is also based off of. And
yeah, no, very much so. Did anyone actually find out how big the event was?
I was in the
I
cabin.
got a photo of it here.
It was
Oh,
in the
do you?
Wasn't it like
Um,
invite only?
We'll have to throw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
well, I got
got a
invited.
text
Yeah.
about it.
I also got
Yeah,
invited.
register
No,
before
no,
slots
so-
run out.
So I was actually told that text we all received was a scam.
No way.
I was actually told that text we all received was a scam.
No way.
Phishing for people's social security numbers. I had a friend who said she like clicked the link and it was asking for your social security number, and like it was really sketchy looking.
Wow.
I bet that was from the university. I bet that was from our guy.
No,
Because
but you
they
would have
send.
received an email.
No, they send phishing texts for our safety. Like if
Yeah.
you click
Wait,
on it,
oh,
they
okay.
give you education. They tell you like,
Oh,
"Hey,
okay.
we sent this to
Yeah,
you.
it might
You
have
clicked
been.
on it. You're fine because it was us. But if it wasn't us, here's what could happen." And that's really responsible of them. So I
Yeah,
would hope
no.
that it was the university sending those
Yeah.
texts and not someone actually
There's
trying
our
to nab
shout out to our
socials.
advisor Steve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shout out Steve if
Steve.
you're listening.
Yeah. Well, like I also found out that a conservative actually registered to go and like listen to him, and the Secret Service stopped him and that he couldn't enter.
Why? What was their reasoning?
I think they did like a background check on him and like saw how he voted, I think, or something along those lines.
There's
I don't
no way.
I don't
They-
know the whole story behind
They turned
it.
somebody away.
They turned someone away. Like he came up to the booth and
Do you know like did he register prior or did he just walk in?
I think he registered prior. Like he like had
my
I think he
goodness.
had like a ticket for it and they turned him away. At least I'm pretty
Yes,
sure.
this
I
is
could be wrong.
hearsay, so
Yeah.
we
I
don't
could-
totally know. But
It
yes,
also could be-
that's very interesting.
I also
It's
know
a
that
very interesting story.
yeah.
I always thought this was like plain basically discrimination.
Oh my goodness.
Basically discrimination.
Oh my goodness.
Really
Wow.
interesting. Yeah. So well, I did hear that the event went well.
Well, if you read the comments,
I
on
got
some
a
of the comments.
yeah. Oh, that's right. There was that Instagram.
Oh,
photo.
was there an Instagram thing? I
there's
didn't-
an
Yeah, here
Instagram
I'll
thing.
pull it up real
Yeah.
quick. But
We'll
yeah,
flash it on the
it-
YouTube video.
it looked pretty full. I had an old roommate go. He got some photos with them. I mean, but it makes sense why, they sent him and not Kamala because
Yeah.
they obviously thought that Tim Walz is their key to the Rust Belt. This
He's from
Tim Walz is their key to the Rust Belt. This
he's from here.
Right.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
he's got the accent from here.
Absolutely, yeah. You got the
well,
Minnesota.
Kamala
nice.
can get it too if she wants.
Yeah, well, Kamala will develop it if she doesn't already have it. She's working on
Vowels
it. Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
She's working on it.
She's in her speech
tailoring
classes for
Yeah.
it.
That's great. Oh man. Yeah, did you see Kamala talking about speaking to the Latin American conference or community or
Yes.
whatever?
No.
Yes.
That was incredible.
Was it like a Jamaican accent?
No, the Jamaican one makes sense. She's 50% Jamaican.
Okay.
Like, and the African American one, I can get. I'm
like-
it's like she's Indian and Jamaican, which that makes sense if you have like remnants of these
Yeah.
accents that you grew up with, but to walk into a Latin American community and like really milk it, it's like, oh,
Well,
wow, you're a
and what
liar.
I-
you're a fraud.
Yeah.
Like that was my
That's
thought.
crazy.
What I find so shocking about that too, not a political class in the slightest. My professor brought up when Trump spoke to the Black Journalist Conference,
Yeah.
and he said that he's the best president that they've had since Abraham Lincoln.
True.
For the Black community, and my professor was like grilling him for that, and I'm like, hold up, And I'm like, hold up, Kamala's over here literally faking accents.
Yeah.
Like, and you're mad because he said he did a good job?
Yeah, why don't we consider that cultural appropriation? Like,
Oh, there you
Right,
go.
right.
Fancy word.
No, guys, it's only cultural appropriation for the Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's cancel culture?
Hey, I mean, but that's a good question. When do we need cancel culture? Do we need it? What is it? Let's dive into that.
Really good. I mentioned last week, I'll make this brief because I don't want to dominate here. Michael Knowles has a really good book, Speechless, kind of about this entire topic. What is cancel culture? Entire topic. What is cancel culture? He argues that it's always been there, and that the standards just shift. So yeah, I would recommend anybody listening and anybody at this table to give it a read. It's really good.
This content is sponsored by Michael Knowles.
I wish Michael, if you're listening,
Michael
please
Knowles is
Daily
so
Wire,
cool.
go ahead and sponsor. I wish Michael, if you're listening,
Michael
please
Knowles is
Daily
so
Wire,
cool.
go ahead and sponsor us.
Yes.
We'll take it. Yeah.
I think with cancel culture, you play, a dangerous line if you get really, specific and hardcore on it. You start to play a dangerous line with, like, Marxism. Because I feel like cancel culture can be used in a way where necessarily lives being, taken, but it's violent in a sense where you can control mass groups of people through fear. And so cancel culture is always there, and in some cases it's, you could argue it's beneficial because people will check what they have to say before they say it, but what's being told without, having rights to their own freedom of speech.
How would you define cancel culture?
The ostracizing of an individual by society for reasons I don't know. For social and cultural reasons.
Or like not conforming to their idea what
Right.
how you should be.
Yeah, which are ever changing.
Yeah, I feel like it's like boycotting a person.
Yes,
Mhm.
boycotting
Exactly.
a person.
Cancel culture altogether is just so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
A
well,
person.
cancel culture altogether is just so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, first, if a person cancels me, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because the thing is I control how I react. So honestly, if we just stopped being so afraid of how people think of us in that way, we wouldn't have cancel culture to begin with.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, except when enforcement gets involved or like
Yeah.
you start to lose
Yeah.
your quality of life. That's an issue.
Well, and I think another way we see it, I know I've kind of had to deal with this in like applying for internships and jobs. Like, we're students here on campus wanting to make our voice heard, but we also don't have any experience in the field we're going into yet, and we're trying to gain that experience.
Mhm.
And it's hard to gain that experience when you kind of put this target on your back of speaking what you believe. And, I know I've been canceled plenty of times, maybe not in a serious way, but, enough that I wonder if it will impact, but, enough that I wonder if it will impact my future careers.
You might have been canceled in a sense where you won't know that you're canceled until later.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, do you guys remember that one with Dylan Mulvaney when he was saying, I just worry for your future. Being like, you're trying to silence me, man.
Yeah.
It sounds an awful lot like a threat.
No, it does. It does. And I mean, tonight we have a meeting tonight
Mm-hmm.
for college Republicans,
Yeah,
and
sure.
we're talking about the importance of language. And when we start to control the language, we start to control the people. If you can't say certain things, I mean, that gets dangerous fast.
Like, that's the whole point of America. We have freedom of speech. We're supposed to have freedom of speech, freedom of expression. That's what makes America so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you eliminate words in, any language, you start to eliminate concepts or like social constructs to the point where people don't even know that it's a thing, and then they're like stuck in this circle that they can't get out of because their language is limited.
Yeah. The cancel culture thing on a small scale is relatively easy to deal with for anyone with moral conviction. Like, anybody who's really convicted on what they believe, like on a small scale, you bet your rear that anybody who says squat about your opinions, you're going to be able to stand up and face that and know that you're staying true to what you believe. Where it gets really, really difficult, it's a very real possibility that some of us might. It's the larger scale cancellation and deplatforming. Like, I know you got briefly banned on Instagram.
I was banned on Instagram. What was it? Just a couple
Yeah.
weeks, about a month ago,
Right.
Yeah.
right after the JD Vance rally. I attended that, and it was that next weekend because I went home for the weekend. I went on Instagram to just like message a friend or something, and I got this big notification that says you've been reported for violating our terms of service.
Nice.
You cannot post content for X amount of time or whatever. And it was lifted fairly quickly, but just the fact that I was reported and that was immediately after I posted that I'd gone to a JD Vance rally. And it's a scary thought to think that somebody can just silence you like that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's Elon Musk, the owner of X, who's going to use his discretion. Like, at Instagram, it's some person, like, who has their own opinions and may be very different from you and is going to oversee your appeal or your case or whatever. And of course, they're going to use their own bias against a certain group of people. This goes all the way back to the whatever was it title something or another?
Title IX?
Was it that it was the social media one?
Oh,
that Trump
I don't
was
know.
fighting.
Oh, I don't know
whatever,
which one.
whatever. But it's just like the algorithm stuff and having to show it. But yeah, it's the large scale cancellation is pretty unbearable. Banned from all social media, you can get debanked. You can get destroyed if you're of the wrong political ideology.
And
So.
what's interesting about that is to say anything is to risk offending somebody else's feelings. Somebody else's feelings doesn't trump your right to the so anything you say like can have the potential to offend somebody.
I always say when, if I walk in on a man who identifies as a woman, like in the bathroom or something,
Sure.
I would scream and tell them calling the police, and tell them calling the police, and then I would probably get canceled right away. And I'm like, my safety is way more important than your feelings.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that's something many of us girls have seen here on this campus. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I had just someone in our club this past week tell me that
Oh,
that
no.
happened to her. I was on the phone with her while it happened. Our club this past week tell me that
Oh,
that
no.
happened to her. I was on the phone with her while it happened. And, I should be able to say, hey, I don't feel safe with you in here, or tell them to get out, and so, yeah, your feelings do not come before my safety.
Well, I think we've thoroughly discussed some of the negatives of advocate here. What are
I like it.
what are the cases or situations where cancel culture, in essence, would be necessary?
Almost like it creates like a stigma around something that a lot of people consider negative.
Yeah, like shame.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
sure.
shame.
Yeah, it
Holds people accountable because they don't want to feel the
Well, I mean, like going to kind of a extreme example of kids thinking they're cats and wanting litter boxes in their high schools. Like, you should feel some shame with that,
Yes.
like that's not normal, and it's perfectly
therapy.
yeah, it's perfectly natural for the culture to counteract that. And to make it, very clear that that's not normal, so that these kids don't grow up with, these crazy mental disorders.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there's like a fine line. I mean, and like to be pretty blunt, like kind of a gentle cancel culture that's like you could take a child who maybe does identify as a cat or dog or whatever. And I mean, like, to be real, I thought I was a Jedi Knight for quite some time.
Are
like
you?
I hope someday the Force will work, but as of now, no. But with that being, like, it's important to be able to guide children and guide people into the right situation. But at the same time, like, legitimate scorn and public shame is necessary, and like in situations where like somebody were to, I don't know, I mean, let's be serious, like commit a crime. Like, if you commit a crime, like, a lot of people think like all these felons who may come back into society, they deserve all of this love and respect because they did their time and they did all this stuff. Well, I mean, like, society has standards and rules, and if you did something that it deems very heinous or aggressive or to the point where, like, when you come out, like, take, for example, pedophiles. Somebody could be a pedophile. They get put on the registry. They may do time. They may not. They may do probation, whatever. I mean, there is serious societal stigma against these people. And, some people, make mistakes when they're young and get put on sex offender registry. So not 100% of the time is it like fair that some kid who made a mistake when he was 17 with his 15-year-old girlfriend is on the registry. Like, I've just heard stories of this happening. But with this being said, if you are on the sex offender registry that comes with a stigma. Like, and society's going to enforce that stigma. And I, quite frankly, think it's a good thing.
I mean, it's for the safety of the community, too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think another thing, too, that's kind of interesting when it comes to cancel culture is, like, the psychology behind it. And why does it happen? I don't know. Cam's our psychology major in here.
Yeah.
Resident doctor.
Kind of want to like include the concept of groupthink, which basically, of small cohesive groups tend to accept a viewpoint or conclusion that represents a perceived group consensus, which makes it a lot more difficult for people who aren't with the majority to feel like they can like speak out and oppose that, which could lead to the whole cancel culture things, like especially on especially as like conservatives, if you speak out, then it's kind of like you're getting canceled, like you are going to be the odd one out here.
Well, and I think, we talked about this a little last week. We have a lot of people who come up and say, like, oh, I don't have a spot on campus. And, we give them that spot on campus. Like, oh, I don't have a spot on campus. And, we give them that spot on campus. And it kind of goes back to the idea when they can find somebody with like mind, there is this feeling of inclusion. And, like, they can speak up then. And, it kind of builds almost exponentially in that sense.
Or even if just being here to provide a different perspective so that it's not, all the same thing all the time.
Yeah, groupthink is a very, very dangerous thing to do. You need to surround yourself with people who don't necessarily agree with you. That's why college Republicans is so great, because not everybody agrees with everybody. That's what our debate nights are for, to really solidify your beliefs if you need to.
Okay, moving on. Let's kind of look at where cancel culture originated from. Do we have any thoughts on that?
So, supposedly, cancel culture sort of originated, or at least the concept of like canceling someone originated from like this 1991 film, New Jack City. In this film, there was a scene where a man breaks up with his girlfriend, saying to cancel her and he'll buy another one.
What a man.
And then later in 2010, rapper Lil Wayne referenced this scene in his song. And then in 2014, reality show Love and Hip Hop aired, and a character tells his love interest, "You're canceled." I don't remember what the context was of that. It was first like a joke. It was like, "You're canceled." Just kind of like a funny thing. But then it got to be a lot more like a serious of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, this person is like, they're a bad person. They're canceled.
Yeah,
kind of
like
thing.
language manipulation to where it's not,
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had no clue that it all started
I know.
from a...
Canceled.
Yeah,
kind of
like
thing.
language manipulation to where it's not,
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had no clue that it all started
I
from
know.
a movie.
From this movie.
Like, what?
in
I mean, it goes to
1990.
show the impact that, Hollywood can have on our society, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
for
my
better or
goodness.
for worse.
Honestly.
I mean, we're talking about the
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think cancel culture, it goes back even
just been a
farther.
thing forever.
Yeah.
But but the actual
Canceled,
phrase
just like
itself
canceling
saying,
someone.
you're
Right,
canceled.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think, the word cancel, I feel like, hasn't ever really been used in a context towards a person. I feel like it's usually been used action, like,
Yeah.
this event has been canceled, or, like,
Right.
we're, like, postponing it, and now it's being used towards people.
Well, and looking at what the word itself means, if you cancel something, you're ending it. There is no future for it. Like that is the stop right then and there. And you
It's
know,
just being
like
used so loose.
In reality, now it's more like they're hated on for maybe like 5 to 6 months, and then they
if
just have to forget
even,
about it.
I mean, sometimes people just throw it around. You know, you're in an argument. They're like,
You're canceled.
that's gonna get you canceled, or you're canceled. You know, and it's like,
I already canceled
Okay,
myself.
and?
Yeah.
What's interesting, so I just Googled cancel, the definition of it, and cancel, the definition of it, and the Oxford language doesn't even use it in the context in which we use it now. It says, decide or announce that a planned event will not take place, or the other definition is of a fact or a circumstance to neutralize or negate the force or effect of something else. Something else.
Right. It's interesting. They don't even include like I guess it's the slang.
The slang.
Slang.
The slang term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, huh? That actually kind of surprises me. So where do we go from here now? Like, you know, we know what cancel culture is. We don't like it, but how do we fight back against something like that?
My take is there are two options. There are two strategies. Strategy number one is institutional takeover. You need conservatively minded people to take over the existing institutions. This is the executive positions at major Hollywood or social media or movie, whatever, these companies. We need to get like-minded people in positions of authority to be able to enact change from within the existing establishment. Now, option two is something Dan Bongino, Secret Service, earlier assassination attempt, Secret Service, and the shooting. He's a former Secret Service agent, and he talks about the parallel economy a lot. How conservatives we're doing it now. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of both when you look at like X, for example. X was Twitter, was purchased by a like-minded individual who has now changed. In that same thread, Rumble is like an alternative platform where conservatives can post their content without fearing the YouTube strike moderation. And I mean, so these are ways where we could, you know, think about long-term making a real difference. You're going to need to either build term making a real difference. You're going to need to either build an economy where where conservatives can go to knowingly conservative brands for whatever they need, or you need to reform the existing institutions. That's my brief thought.
And
Okay.
I think-
Well, be fearless.
Yeah.
Yeah, be fearless. Be proud of what you believe.
yeah.
Yeah, speaking up, saying things. I mean, I think too, just showing our presence, you know, and I mean that's ultimately why we started this podcast. I think that's something, you know, we could have talked a little bit about more last podcast. You know, we could have talked a little bit about more last podcast episode. But like, why are we here? You know, it's because we want to share our perspective with the world, and we want to share, you know, what it's like to be a conservative on campus, not just because we want to talk about ourselves, but because we want to show, you know, that because we want to show, you know, that we're here and we know it's difficult, but we see you guys and we are fighting this culture.
Yeah. I think truth is like one of the best policies. It's like one of the best defenses you can have because you can't argue the truth. And then just making sure we don't cancel. I think having healthy debates and discussions would also help as well because that's what everything was founded on essentially was, you know, debating, questioning things and discussing it.
I also think we should need to like stop giving certain words like power over us in a way, because that's words power. And I was talking about this in my communications class. We define that power to the words. If we just stop caring about like the power that it holds, it can't affect us. So
That's a very good point, Lizzie. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed our talk, and just know if someone's canceled, we don't see you as canceled. As always, come check us out. You know, if you're in the Eau Claire area, Mondays at 7, Centennial 1704. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to Right on Campus. We post this podcast once a week where we talk about current events and life on campus. We post this podcast once a week where we talk about current events and life as a conservative on campus. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at UWEC College Republicans. Have a great night and see you next time.